The first, death. The Boys presents a world that seems familiar at first glance, heroes saving people and being treated like celebrities, but it quickly becomes clear that this reality is very different from traditional stories. Here, supers are managed by a giant corporation called Vought International, which turns rescues into marketing, movies, ad deals, and billions of dollars in profit. The company's most famous group is the Seven, a team that is basically the equivalent of a perfect superhero league in the public's eyes. But behind the scenes, things are much darker. Right at the beginning, we see Homelander intercept a robber trying to escape after a heist. Instead of simply arresting him, he throws the man high into the air with tremendous force. The criminal crashes down violently and dies on the spot.
Boys okay?
But the tragedy that truly starts the story happens right after that. Young electronics salesman Huey Campbell is walking with his girlfriend, Robin Ward. In seconds, everything changes.
Don't you ever besmirch Billy.
A-Train, the speedster from the Seven, runs straight through Robin at full speed without even realizing what happened. The impact is so brutal that the young woman is instantly torn apart. And this is where anyone watching The Boys for the first time realizes they are seeing something different. Huey stands there on the sidewalk holding only her hands. That death not only destroys Huey's life, but also plants a deep hatred of supers inside him. Vought quickly tries to cover up the case. A company representative offers Huey financial compensation in exchange for a silence agreement. He almost accepts until he meets a mysterious man, Billy Butcher. He claims to work with a secret team that hunts corrupt supers and convinces Huey that the only way to get justice is to go after these heroes. Meanwhile, Vought announces that a spot has opened up in the Seven after Lamplighter's retirement. The one chosen to take the position is Starlight. She comes from a small town and grew up believing supers were true protectors of humanity. But on her very first day on the team, she gets a brutal reality check when the Deep sexually blackmails her to keep her place. The world she idealized starts to fall apart. While Starlight discovers the dirty side of the hero industry, Homelander once again shows his brutality. The mayor of Baltimore, Steve, threatens to complicate a deal with Vought. In response, Homelander invades the politician's private plane and simply slices the aircraft in half with his heat vision. The attack kills Mayor Steve himself, his son Mason, 3 women who were on board, 1 unidentified man, and the plane's 2 pilots. It all happens in seconds, showing that to Homelander, human lives are just obstacles. Following his plan, Butcher uses Huey to try planting a listening device during a meeting with the company. But the plan fails when the Seven's invisible hero, Translucent, discovers the attempted spying. He follows Huey to work and starts beating him, ready to kill him. Butcher shows up just in time to interfere, and the two manage to take the super down using electricity. Now they face an unexpected problem. Translucent's skin is practically indestructible. To solve it, Butcher calls in an old ally, Frenchie. After several tests, Frenchie realizes that the inside of the hero's body does not have the same resistance as his skin. The solution? Putting an explosive inside him. In the final moment, Huey has to decide whether or not to detonate it. Remembering Robin's death, he presses the trigger. The explosion kills Translucent instantly. Then we get another killing by Homelander when he murders a criminal with 1 punch to stop a shootout. Meanwhile, A-Train is dealing with another problem. He needs to prove he is still the fastest man in the world, and secretly starts using a substance called Compound V to boost his powers. His girlfriend, the heroine Popclaw, is also using the drug. In a moment of lost control caused by the substance, she accidentally crushes her landlord Alexei Lutz's skull. The accident becomes an opportunity for the boys to blackmail Popclaw and get information about Compound V. Following those leads, the group discovers a hidden lab where they find a superpowered woman being held captive. That woman is Kimiko Miyashiro. Even before being freed, she had already left behind a trail of bodies. Guards from the organization keeping her prisoner are brutally killed. One has his neck snapped, another is beaten to death, and a third commits suicide rather than face her fury. Another victim found at the site is Roberta Cho, whose body appears completely mutilated. Meanwhile, another mission involving terrorists happens on a hijacked plane. During the confrontation, one terrorist is sucked out of the aircraft when Queen Maeve opens the door, and another has his neck snapped by her. Homelander also joins the action, incinerating one terrorist with his heat vision. In the middle of the chaos, the terrorists execute both of the plane's pilots. Homelander then uses his vision to kill the last terrorist. The disaster gets even worse when Homelander accidentally destroys the aircraft's controls during the confrontation. With no way to save the plane, he simply decides to abandon the passengers. The plane crashes into the ocean, killing everyone on board. Well, since we are talking about all the deaths, we also cannot forget that in episode 4, there is the death of a dolphin that gets run over by a truck. The reveal. While the public keeps idolizing the supers, the boys uncover a shocking truth. Nobody is born with powers. All the heroes were given Compound V as babies, turning them into products created by Vought. During the break-in at Vought's secret lab, Billy Butcher realizes he is surrounded by armed guards and has no weapon to fight back. In a completely unbelievable move, he grabs one of the babies from the incubators. When he points the baby toward the guards, the child's eyes start firing energy beams that blast through the enemies and destroy everything in front of them. Within seconds, the hallway turns into total chaos, and Butcher manages to escape after using the baby as an improvised weapon. Vought International puts an extremely calculated plan into action, creating super terrorists around the world using Compound V, all to generate global fear and pressure the government into officially accepting supers into the military. What nobody expected is that the real mastermind behind it was not the company itself, but Homelander, who was manipulating everything behind the scenes to increase his power and influence. Things get even more complicated when A-Train decides to get rid of Popclaw to stop her from revealing company secrets. He injects her with several syringes of heroin, making it look like a fatal overdose. Then there is Kimiko Miyashiro, one of the most mysterious and dangerous characters in The Boys. But before gaining her powers, her story began in an extremely tragic way. In a flashback, we see the moment her life changes forever. While Kimiko is still a child, looking out the window at night in her home, armed men suddenly invade the place. The intruders beat her parents and then execute them by shooting them right in front of her and her younger brother Kenji. With no chance to escape, both children are captured and taken by the terrorists. The brutal shock of that night is so deep that Kimiko simply stops speaking, forever carrying the trauma of watching her parents die right before her eyes. Another important character who crosses paths with the boys is Mesmer, a former child star with mind-reading powers. At first he helps the group, but later decides to betray them and reveals their identities to Homelander. When Butcher finds out, his reaction is brutal. He repeatedly smashes Mesmer's head against a sink until he dies. At the same time, Starlight faces her own personal collapse. She finds out that Huey Campbell had been lying to her and using her as part of the boys' plan, while also discovering the most disturbing truth of all. Her powers were never a gift, but the result of childhood experiments with Compound V. That double revelation completely destroys the idealistic view of the world she once had. At that point, 4 terrorists are killed by the SEAL team for organizing the attack on Flight 37. Meanwhile, a superpowered terrorist named Naqib causes another tragedy. During a military operation to capture him, 4 members of the SEAL team are killed when he self-destructs in a fiery explosion. At the end of the season, Homelander finally gets what he wanted: authorization for supers to take part in military operations. During one of those missions, he massacres an entire group of terrorists, slicing several of them in half. While all this is happening, the boys are captured by Vought agents. During the escape, Huey kills one of the agents with a machine gun shot, while Starlight kills another by throwing him into a light fixture with her powers. In the season's final confrontation, A-Train tries to kill Huey, but his body cannot handle the abuse from Compound V. He suffers a heart attack and apparently dies, although he is later revived. At the same time, Billy Butcher finally reveals the real reason behind his obsession. Years earlier, his wife, Becca, disappeared after an encounter with Homelander, and all the evidence pointed to her having been assaulted and killed. That trauma was the fuel behind his entire war against supers. But that is exactly when the biggest twist of the season hits. After a direct confrontation, Homelander shows Butcher the truth. Becca never died. She survived and has been living in hiding in a secret location. Even more shocking, she gave birth to Homelander's son, a child who inherited his powers. Finally, Homelander confronts the Vought executive who had always controlled him, Madeline Stillwell. After discovering that she lied to him about several secrets, he decides to kill her. With a precise blast of heat vision, he burns through her eyes and kills her instantly. The first season ends with Butcher facing an impossible reality he can no longer ignore. The woman he always loved is alive, and now there is a child who directly connects his greatest enemy to his past. The chaos continues. The second season of The Boys starts exactly where the first one left off. The revelation that Homelander has a son completely changes the game as he begins training the boys' powers. After Madeline Stillwell's death, the boys become the most wanted criminals in the United States. Billy Butcher has mysteriously disappeared, and the rest of the group, Huey Campbell, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Kimiko Miyashiro, have to live in hiding while trying to survive and keep investigating Vought. Right at the start of the season, we see an operation led by Black Noir, one of the most mysterious members of the Seven. Acting under orders from Vought CEO Stan Edgar, he wipes out a group of terrorists connected to Compound V trafficking. A female terrorist has her throat slit by his sword. A man suffers the same fate seconds later. Another has his head split open by Noir. The group's leader, Rafik, is run through with the sword. And finally, the super terrorist Naqib, also called Captain, ends up being killed off-screen. This opening massacre makes it clear that Vought is still using extreme violence to control any threat. Meanwhile, inside the Seven itself, there's a cruel display of power. Homelander tests a new hero candidate named Blindspot, who has extremely sensitive hearing. Homelander decides to prove that he is not worthy of the team and destroys his eardrums with a brutal strike to both ears. The damage is so severe that Blindspot ends up dying from blood loss. Soon after, the boys try to negotiate with their former CIA ally, Susan Rayner, who promises to help clear their names if they capture a super terrorist who entered the country illegally. However, before she can explain what she knows, her head suddenly explodes right in the middle of the conversation. The invisible person responsible is revealed later on. At that point, we also have Kimiko Miyashiro killing an SLLA member. While Homelander's family drama keeps developing, the group faces another problem: a super terrorist named Kenji Miyashiro, Kimiko's brother. During the initial chase, Kenji uses his telekinetic powers and causes an accident that brings down a police helicopter, killing 2 officers. That incident marks the beginning of a chaotic chain of events that leads to one of the most destructive scenes of the season. When the boys try to escape by sea, the Deep attempts to stop them by using a whale to block their path. Billy Butcher, without hesitating, simply drives the boat straight through the animal. He collision tears through the whale's body, killing it instantly. The chaos continues when the Seven arrive at the scene, including the team's newest member, Stormfront. She quickly shows that she is just as cruel as Homelander, on top of being a white supremacist. During the chase after Kenji inside a residential building, Stormfront fires electric blasts that kill a civilian by violently throwing him into a refrigerator. Then she kills a teenager and another person off camera. Their screams echo as she tears apart the apartment. Another man is thrown out of the building's window. 2 women die in explosions caused by her lightning, and 53 more people are killed in the blast that destroy the building and the streets around it. At the end of the fight, Stormfront captures Kenji and breaks both his wrists and his neck, killing Kimiko's brother. These events show something important. Stormfront does not care about civilian victims. At that point, we also have the death of a civilian in a car accident. Meanwhile, clues start coming out about Stormfront's past. It is revealed that she used to be known as Liberty, a superhero active in the 1970s. In a flashback, we see Liberty brutally murdering Myron Hunter, a black man who simply crossed her path. She repeatedly smashes him against the hood of a car until he dies. At the same time, Homelander's instability keeps growing. In one disturbing moment, he kills the shapeshifter known as Doppelganger after the character tries to turn into Stillwell to please him. In one of the tensest scenes of Season 2, a super criminal known only as the Wind Soup Terrorist appears terrorizing a small village in Africa. The man, who had been given Compound V and developed wind-related powers, uses his abilities to intimidate and attack local residents, spreading fear among people who have no way to defend themselves. The situation changes when Homelander shows up. Without hesitating, he decides to solve the problem in a quick and brutal way. Using his heat vision, he fires a beam directly at the criminal, killing him instantly. However, the attack does not end there. The laser goes through the target and ends up hitting a teenager standing behind him, killing the boy as well. While the boys keep investigating Vought, Kimiko goes up against members of the Russian mafia who had been exploiting vulnerable people. During the fight, she rips off one gangster's face, breaks another one's neck, and finishes off the other one. Season 2 also has one of the weirdest deaths when Homelander crushes a thief's skull while Stormfront was doing something different to him. You know what I mean. Another shocking event happens when the boys break into a secret Vought psychiatric hospital where several unstable supers are being held. Chaos erupts when one of the most dangerous patients, Cindy, escapes. In the middle of the panic, one of the patients, Tim, tries to flee the place, believing he can escape that real-life human lab. However, his attempt is quickly discovered. To prevent any rebellion or exposure of what happens inside the hospital, Stormfront orders Lamplighter to take care of the problem. With no other choice, the hero uses his fire powers and unleashes an intense burst of flames that hits Tim directly, burning the patient alive in seconds in front of the others. During the escape, a Vought guard is shot by Frenchie, while others are killed by the patients themselves. One guard is blown apart from the inside by Cindy's telekinetic powers, another has his head destroyed. A doctor is beaten to death by a patient, while another is hit by a photonic energy blast. In the middle of the chaos, another patient dies in a grotesque way from his own acid vomit after being kicked by Kimiko. Another patient is blown up by Cindy, and Billy Butcher also kills a patient by shooting him 3 times in the chest. There's also a police officer killed off-screen. During this episode, we also discover an old tragedy. Years earlier, the hero Lamplighter had accidentally killed 2 children by setting a house on fire, believing he was attacking Grace Mallory. Those 2 children were Mallory's grandchildren. Soon after, another accident happens when Starlight Starlight tries to escape from two men who were chasing her. One of them, Dennis, ends up being thrown to the ground by a blast of light and dies with his skull crushed. Meanwhile, Kuldeep Singh is just a simple convenience store clerk who becomes a victim of the paranoia spread by Stormfront and Homelander. After several fiery speeches about infiltrated super terrorists, an ordinary man starts believing that anyone could be a threat. In a paranoid moment, he sees the reflection of car headlights in Kuldeep's eyes and starts suspecting that the clerk is a disguised supervillain. The next day, consumed by fear and the theories he had heard, the man returns to the store and shoots Kuldeep in the head, killing him instantly. Going back to the main story, Lamplighter ends up having one of the darkest endings in the series. After agreeing to help Huey get into Vought Tower, he is consumed by guilt over accidentally killing Grace Mallory's grandchildren in the past, and also feels like a failure in the eyes of both his father and Vought. He walks into the old 7 meeting room expecting to find his statue there, as if it still represented some kind of legacy. When he realizes it has been removed, he understands that he has been completely erased from the group's history. Without saying much, he lights his lighter and uses his own fire powers to set himself on fire, burning to death right in front of Huey. Congress tragedy. The season then moves toward its most shocking moment, a congressional hearing meant to investigate Vought. During the testimony, the company's former scientist, Dr. Jonah Vogelbaum, starts revealing secrets about Compound V. Suddenly, heads start exploding one after another all over the room. The first to die is committee chairman Matthew Richardson, whose head explodes instantly. Then Vogelbaum himself suffers the same fate. A chain of victims follows. A woman, the speedster Shockwave, and several other people at the hearing. The massacre shuts the investigation down immediately. From that point on, the story starts moving toward the ending, with several pieces shifting at the same time. Victoria Newman rises as a political figure who seems to be on the right side, standing against Vought International and defending tighter control over supers. At the same time, A-Train ends up playing an important role by helping expose Stormfront's past, revealing to the public her connection to Nazism, something that starts weakening her image. Meanwhile, Homelander and Stormfront take an even more dangerous step by trying to pull Ryan away from his mother, believing they can shape the boy into their own image of the world. Desperate, Becca turns to Billy Butcher and begs him for help saving her son, putting Butcher in front of a difficult choice. At first, he agrees to make a deal with Stan Edgar, hand over Ryan in exchange for freedom, but at the crucial moment, he backs out. For the first time, Butcher chooses to protect the boy, giving up his own revenge for something bigger. In the final episodes, the conflict between the boys, Stormfront, and Homelander explodes into a direct confrontation. During the final chase, Homelander massacres Vought's own agents. He slices one agent in half with his heat vision and kills 5 others off camera. In the decisive battle, Stormfront defeats Kimiko and even snaps her neck, although she survives thanks to her healing factor. But the most tragic moment happens when Ryan, trying to protect his mother, unleashes his powers for the first time. The attack destroys Stormfront, but it also hits Becca, accidentally slashing her neck. Becca dies in Billy's arms, asking him to take care of Ryan and help him grow into a better person. Soon after, Homelander appears to take the boy back, and the situation reaches its limit. But Queen Maeve steps in with an unexpected strategy: blackmail. She threatens to release proof that Homelander let a plane full of civilians die. Unable to risk his public image, he backs off, allowing Ryan to leave. The boy is then turned over to the CIA, where he stays under protection and away from his father's influence. Meanwhile, Vought tries to contain the damage, announcing a pause in the use of Compound V and managing to clean up its public image. As a result, the boys also get their names cleared. After the battle, Stormfront survives in critical condition, and Homelander loses both his ally and his control over the political situation. Inside the 7, things shift. Starlight keeps her position, and A-Train returns to the group, while the Deep remains out, unable to win his place back. In the political world, Newman takes another important step by creating an agency focused on controlling supers and recruits Huey, who believes he is finally fighting on the right side. But the season still has one last reveal waiting. In a final scene, the leader of the Church of the Collective, Alistair Adana, who focuses on fallen supes, talks with Victoria Newman, only to have his head exploded too. That death finally confirms that Newman is the mysterious killer behind all the attacks. That is how the second season of The Boys ends, with dozens of deaths, even bigger conspiracies, and the reveal that the person who seemed to be fighting against Vought may actually be one of its most dangerous weapons. The deaths keep coming. After all the chaos with Stormfront in Season 2, things had gone back to a certain normal. Vought came out basically untouched, as always, and Homelander was under control thanks to the plane video Maeve had kept as leverage. A tense truce, but it worked. Huey was doing okay, openly dating Annie, Starlight, working at the Bureau of Superhuman Affairs, thinking he could finally make a difference from inside the system. Butcher was trying to be a decent person, stepping into a father figure role for Ryan, Homelander, and Becca's son. But then the season kicks off with a reminder that The Boys is anything but a calm show. Peter, a regular guy, dies in an absolutely grotesque way. During an intimate moment, the hero termite uses his shrinking powers but loses control when he sneezes and returns to normal size at the worst possible moment. The result is an instant and horrific death, with Peter's body torn apart from the inside out, setting the exaggerated and brutal tone of the season right from the start. Huey finds out his boss, Congresswoman Victoria Newman, is the infamous head popper, the soupe responsible for killing a bunch of people in Congress. The one who seemed to be on the right side was actually working with Vought the whole time. And to make things worse, she grew up in an orphanage for dangerous soups and was adopted by none other than Stan Edgar, Vought's CEO. One big, extremely dysfunctional, happy family. Speaking of deaths we learn about from the past, Newman has a complicated history. As a child, she accidentally blew up her own father and mother. Not exactly something you put on a resume. And when a guy named Tony decides to leak information about Red River, the soup orphanage, she handles it in the most direct way possible, blowing his head up too. Meanwhile, Homelander is in controlled meltdown mode. The scene starts with him handling a routine situation, with Chelsea about to jump off a building. Stormfront, his Nazi ex-girlfriend, was still alive but in a horrible condition since Ryan destroyed her last season. When she finally kills herself by biting off her own tongue, from that point on, everything shifts. He drops any facade, becomes cold and cruel, and turns what should be a rescue into pure psychological pressure. Even when Chelsea decides not to jump, he directly threatens her, making it clear that one way or another, it would end in death, so she jumps. Homelander goes completely unhinged live on TV, delivering a totally out-of-control speech about how he's superior to everyone. And you know what's scariest? A lot of people loved it. That was the turning point. Homelander realizes he doesn't need to please everyone. He just needs the ones who already worship him. And that's when things start getting worse. Before that, he still tries to keep up the good guy image. But after finding out Starlight and the new member of the Seven, Supersonic, were plotting against him with a little help from A-Train, who snitched on his teammate, Homelander brutally kills Supersonic. Welcome to the new normal. The main plot of the season revolves around Soldier Boy, the first American superhero. Basically a Captain America type, except prejudiced, misogynistic, violent, and with zero redemption. He supposedly died in the 80s in an explosion at a nuclear plant in Nicaragua, but he was alive the whole time, held in a Russian lab and used as a test subject. To figure out what happened to him, Butcher and Maeve investigate the past and discover that Soldier Boy's death was actually a CIA operation, led by Grace Mallory. In the flashback of that mission, we see a bloodbath. Seriously, there are a ton of deaths, one worse than the next. Claudio gets shot by Russian soldiers, 2 Contra soldiers blow up, Grace shoots and kills 2 Russian soldiers, Black Noir cuts down 2 more, Swado dies in a missile strike, Gunpowder shoots 6 Russian soldiers in the back, and Soldier Boy throws another Russian soldier through the air. Not to mention the 111 Contra soldiers who died off screen. A complete massacre. In The Boys, Raymond Tucker's death is mentioned as part of Blue Hawk's history of abuse, serving more as narrative weight than an explicit scene. It appears in the context of the hero's violent patrols, reinforcing that his actions weren't exceptions, but a pattern. This background is key to building tension and justifying A-Train's anger, as he begins to see confrontation as inevitable. In the present, Butcher gets temporary Compound V from Maeve, a version of the substance that gives powers for a limited time. He uses it to confront Gunpowder, a former partner of Soldier Boy who tries to kill him, and Butcher just lasers the guy's head in half. To reach Soldier Boy, the team has to go into Russia. That involves Nina, Frenchie's former boss from his criminal past, who orders Kimiko to do a job, kill an oligarch, and she does. Inside the Russian lab, the mission turns into a battlefield. Multiple Russian soldiers die at the hands of Butcher, Kimiko, and Huey, who, powered up on Compound V, punches straight through a soldier's chest. Oh, and an important detail from earlier. We learn Frenchie has a dark past. He killed Mikhail Petrov by decapitating him with a car door, and also killed Mikhail's fiancée, who witnessed everything, all under Nina's orders. That guilt weighs on Frenchie throughout the entire season. Soldier Boy returns. Soldier Boy returns to America with a mission: kill the members of Payback who sold him out to the Russians. First on the list, Crimson Countess, his ex-girlfriend, who Butcher and Huey hand over to him on a silver platter. She's incinerated by Soldier Boy without ceremony. Before that, she already had a record. She accidentally killed a Vautland employee while trying to hit Kimiko and Frenchie. The deaths caused by Soldier Boy happen extremely fast and brutally. During a PTSD-triggered episode, he releases a blast of energy from his chest that works like a nuclear discharge. Anyone nearby has no chance. Bodies are incinerated instantly, often reduced to ash or completely vaporized without even having time to react. Then comes Herogasm, an annual superhero orgy that the show obviously doesn't hold back on. Soldier Boy shows up there and once again has a PTSD grainy flashback, and everything spirals. Tommy and Tessa, the super twins, are accidentally incinerated, along with 10 more soups and civilians unlucky enough to be in the wrong place. In the middle of all this, Kimiko, who was powerless after being hit by Soldier Boy, decides to act anyway. She slits the throat of one of Nina's henchmen to save Frenchie and Cherie, and then stabs Yevgeny to death in self-defense. A-Train, on the other hand, decides to do the right thing for the first time in a long time. After seeing his brother Nathan get trampled and paralyzed by Blue Hawk, a racist soup, A-Train uses his speed to drag Blue Hawk across the asphalt until he dies. Justice. But the effort causes a devastating heart attack. He survives, but with Blue Hawk's heart in his chest. And Termite, the one from the beginning, Homelander just steps on him like he's an insect. Soldier Boy, still under the effects of a nightmare induced by Mindstorm, shoots and kills a priest and a nun without really realizing what he's doing. Butcher's past also comes to light in a nightmare. We find out his brother, Lenny, killed himself after being abandoned by Billy with their abusive father. It's the weight Butcher carries and what explains a lot about who he is. Mindstorm, another member of Payback, who had sold Soldier Boy to the Russians, is stabbed by Soldier Boy himself when they meet again. Maeve escapes captivity after killing 5 Vought agents who were holding her prisoner and joins the final confrontation. Then comes Black Noir's death, which happens in a direct and brutal way at Homelander's hands. After discovering the truth about Soldier Boy, he feels betrayed that Noir kept it hidden for so long. Without hesitation, Homelander punches through his chest with a single blow, literally piercing his body. Noir stays standing for a few seconds before collapsing and dying alone, having those hallucinations with his cartoon characters as a final moment before the end. Meanwhile, the Deep, under Homelander's orders and at Newman's request, carries out the assassination of Lamar Bishop, the vice presidential candidate, drowning him to clear the way for her on the ticket. And in the middle of the boys' final plan against Soldier Boy, Frenchie needs to prepare a gas capable of neutralizing the target. But to do that, he's completely vulnerable inside Vaught's lab, while armed security begins storming the place. That's where Kimiko steps in. She had just regained her powers after realizing that without them, she couldn't protect anyone. With time running out and chaos escalating, she decides to hold off all the guards by herself, making sure Frenchie can finish the job. And that's when she puts on her headphones and takes everyone on, killing Vought agents one by one, whether with scissors or by smashing their heads with a weapon. In the final confrontation, Homelander also lasers Roland Keating, a protester who threw a can at Ryan in public, right in front of cameras, and the crowd applauds. Maeve sacrifices everything by throwing Soldier Boy out the window, along with herself, and absorbing the explosion. Everyone thought she had died, but she survives, powerless, free to live a normal life for the first time. The season ends with the world in serious trouble. Soldier Boy is back in a containment tube, this time in the United States. Newman is running for vice president. Homelander is more powerful and dangerous than ever, with Ryan by his side. And Butcher, he's dying. The temporary compound V is going to kill him. It's only a matter of time. But the boys are still standing, more united than ever, with Annie officially on the team, and with so much damage still to be done and undone. Things get even worse. If Season 3 of The Boys already felt like absolute chaos, Season 4 came to prove it can always get worse. The season starts with the world in a very fragile state. Homelander killed a man in public, and instead of being cancelled, became an even bigger idol. He went to trial, of course, but came out basically untouched, because that's how things work when half the country blindly worships you. On the other side, Starlight becomes the face of the anti-Homelander movement. She's the hope, the symbol, the woman who isn't afraid to tell the truth. And the boys continue their mission, now with a very clear new target. Victoria Newman, newly elected Vice President of the United States, and the one they know is the head popper. Right away, they try to take her out, but the plan falls apart when Newman's daughter, Zoe, gets in the way. The girl took Compound V at the end of last season and is now a soup, and to protect her mother, she kills 2 Secret Service agents with her own tentacles. Meanwhile, Homelander is still terrible at running Vought, because he fired everyone competent and surrounded himself with yes men. So he has an idea. Recruit Sister Sage, literally the smartest person on the planet. She agrees immediately because she also wants a world where soups rule over everyone, and she has a plan to make that happen while still making Homelander look like the good guy. The plan begins at his own trial, where Sage orchestrates a full-blown riot between Homelander supporters and Starlight supporters, and to plant bodies in the right place and blame the wrong side, she has 3 people killed. Dirk, Greg, and Todd are beaten to death with batons by Noir II. Yeah, there's another one now. That Black Noir Homelander killed was replaced by an actor. Yes, literally an actor hired to wear the mask and pretend to be the same character. And he spends the entire season trying to understand the character's motivation. On the boys' side, Butcher is dying. The temporary compound V he used is slowly killing him. But something even stranger is happening. He starts hallucinating Becca, his dead ex-wife, who keeps appearing to tell him he needs to save Ryan from Homelander. He also has a brain tumor caused by the temporary V, and that tumor develops a kind of parasite that starts acting on its own. Ryan, meanwhile, is being shaped by Homelander into a weapon. His father stages a first rescue for the cameras, but things go wrong. Coy, an innocent civilian, is thrown into a building and dies during this fake mission. Ryan is crushed with guilt and goes to visit Butcher, who has a real conversation with him, but Homelander doesn't care. He's more focused on building his son's image as the next great hero. During the TruthCon convention, Splinter shows up as an ally of Firecracker, but is soon followed by Frenchie and Kimiko, who uncover a completely disturbing side of the Soupe involving his own clones. Shortly after, everything is revealed to be a trap set by Sister Sage. Splinter, his duplicates, and Firecracker surround the group and start a direct confrontation. In the middle of the fight, the clones begin to drop one by one, while the original goes all in, nearly overpowering everyone. The situation only turns when Butcher joins the fight and, with help from the others, manages to drive a crowbar through Splinter's head, killing the original and causing all the clones to die at the same time. Meanwhile, Frenchie starts a new relationship. Yes, he's bisexual, and is now seeing a guy named Colin. The problem is that in the past, under Nina's orders, Frenchie killed Colin's parents and sister, along with 15 other people in other dirty jobs. When he finds this out, he can't handle the weight of it and turns himself into the police, voluntarily going to prison. Kimiko, who had finally admitted her feelings for him, is left devastated. Speaking of Kimiko, she spends the season confronting her past. She goes after the terrorist group that turned her into an assassin. In the process, she shows no mercy. She rips one guy's throat out, stomps another's head in, stabs a third with a hammer, and well, the massacre just keeps going. It's a lot of death in one place, but for Kimiko, it's the only way to close that chapter. In the middle of all this, we get another impactful death. Annika had always been one of those behind-the-scenes plot pieces, someone who knew too much and said too little, but the heaviest moment comes when she's interrogated about her conversation with Starlight, clearly scared, trying to choose every word carefully. Even so, after being pressured, she ends up revealing that she helped track someone down, believing the promise that everything would be fine. But in the boys, promises mean nothing when they come from Homelander, who simply pierces her head with heat vision in that very moment, killing Annika and leaving Ashley in shock. During the rehearsal of the Vought on Ice show, full of propaganda and forced messaging, Huey and MM sneak in to spy on a conversation between Homelander and Victoria Newman. But everything falls apart the second Homelander realizes he's not alone. He then fires his heat vision completely out of control and slices the actress playing Maeve in half while other skaters are hit in the chaos. One loses fingers, others are seriously injured. In a matter of seconds, what was supposed to be a family-friendly rehearsal turns into an improvised massacre, forcing the immediate cancellation of the show and leaving a trail of blood. Homelander, meanwhile, decides to visit the lab where he was born and raised. We find out that during his own birth, he accidentally killed his own mother. Then he killed 3 more doctors and a nurse. Years later, back at the lab, he shows no remorse. He incinerates Frank in an oven and crushes Martin's head. Both scientists who experimented on him as a child. Barbara Findley, another person responsible for the lab, likely died of starvation after being locked up by him, and 6 more scientists and 1 security guard were killed by him off-screen. This is Homelander in the coldest, most calculated mode we've ever seen. On top of that, we get even more deaths caused by Kimiko in the most brutal ways possible, and Huey Campbell kills one of the terrorists by slashing his neck with a pocket knife. We also have Ezekiel, that soup who built his whole image around religion, posing as a moral example while hiding a much darker side behind the scenes. In episode 4 of The Boys, he crosses paths with the boys during Firecracker's program, and things escalate quickly. Even after having one of his arms frozen by Butcher, he keeps fighting and goes all in as if he still had the upper hand. But the fight completely changes tone when Butcher's more unstable side takes over, using an unexpected power to brutally tear Ezekiel apart. The deadly virus. In Newman's storyline, the boys realize they need a virus capable of killing soups. The lead comes from Gen V, and they find out there's a version of the virus, but Newman has it. To get it back, they form an unlikely alliance with Stan Edgar, her adoptive father, who was betrayed by her and is in prison. They go to Newman's country house, where there's a lab in the basement, but something had already gone wrong there. The V leaked into the water and turned the farm animals into killer soups. And then, you already know, right? Bunch of bizarre deaths. A lab assistant gets impaled by a juiced-up chicken, a bull gets torn apart midair by enhanced sheep, one agent gets ripped to pieces by the sheep. Samir Shah, by the way, was Newman's longtime boyfriend, and after the chaos on the farm, he disappears. They only find his leg. Everyone assumes the sheep ate the rest, but Butcher was behind it. He made the guy fake his own death to work on a new version of the virus away from everyone's eyes. But the decisive moment comes at the end when Stan Edgar is already being taken back to prison. Since the group had to use the last sample of the virus to stop the sheep attack, Mother's Milk realizes that Edgar has to go back to jail, since he didn't hold up his end of the deal. However, Newman steps in and handles the situation in the most direct way possible. She uses her powers to instantly kill the driver, bringing the vehicle to a stop in the middle of the road. Even with the car covered in blood, Edgar stays calm. Then he gets into Newman's own car and leaves, making it clear that, once again, he managed to escape effortlessly, returning to freedom as if he's always several steps ahead of everyone else. Hughie, on the other hand, is dealing with his father, who had a stroke and fell into a coma. His mother comes back after years of being gone, and without knowing the consequences, she injects him with Compound V in hopes of saving him. It works for a moment, but his dad wakes up confused, unable to control his powers, and starts an involuntary rampage. A nurse has her heart accidentally ripped out. A patient is impaled. A hospital security guard also has his heart torn out. When Huey's dad comes back to his senses and realizes what he's done, he shares an emotional goodbye with his son, and then Huey has to do the hardest thing of his life: euthanize his own father so he won't hurt anyone else. Using a substance prepared with Frenchie's help, he puts his father to sleep forever. Then another known character dies. Cameron Coleman was the face of Votes Propaganda, a presenter who used journalism as a tool to manipulate public opinion and protect Soups at all costs. In The Boys, he was always comfortable in that role until he wasn't useful anymore. During the V52 Expo event, everything falls apart for him after he breaks with Ashley, losing the only real protection he had inside the company. From that point on, everything turns against him. Manipulated and exposed, Cameron ends up being brutally beaten to death off camera by Soups. And as always, the worst comes after. Vought simply erases everything, makes up a story, and moves on as if nothing happened. At the ultra-rich party that Homelander needs to convince to support the coup, the boys infiltrate the event. Manages to shoot Sage in the head, the only place she can recover from, but she's in lobotomy mode, so it doesn't help much. Homelander tries to convince the billionaires on his own and completely fails, making it clear he has no idea how to actually govern. It's Newman who saves the situation, composed and cold. But at that same party, Tech Knight, a wealthy detective Soup with a very active dungeon, is strangled by Elijah to prevent a human genocide he was planning to carry out. The Deep, who already had no dignity left, hits a new low. He finds out Sage was also sleeping with Noir II while she was with him, and in a fit of jealousy and rage, he suffocates Ambrosius, his octopus girlfriend, by smashing her tank. In the middle of this, we get a flashback. Before becoming who she is today, Kimiko carried one of the heaviest pasts in The Boys. As a child, she was forced to fight in an arena controlled by the group that held her captive, where other children were also put against each other. The rule was simple and cruel. Whoever made any sound lost and was executed on the spot. To survive, Kimiko had to do the unthinkable. In complete silence, she killed another child with her own hands without being able to react, scream, or show any emotion. Back in the present, Webweaver, another Soup, is exposed as a spy for the boys by Firecracker Andy, torn in half by Homelander without ceremony. Near the end, when Homelander discovers that the leak was coming from A-Train, he sends his people to hunt the boys. Firecracker kills Doug Friedman with a shot to the back. The Deep crushes Evan Lambert's face with a punch, and together with Noir 2, they carry out a massacre inside Vought. In the middle of that chaos, Noir 2 stabs. Also Ashley Barrett's assistant, mistaking her for the boss. The real Ashley, realizing she would be next, takes Compound V in a desperate move. What will happen to her? No one knows yet. A shifter, a Soup capable of changing form, kidnaps Annie and takes her place. Huey, not knowing it's not the real Annie, even goes as far as proposing to her, and she accepts. The real Annie escapes on her own and confronts the shifter, who, before being stopped, killed 3 CIA agents in brutal ways to get to the president. One of the agents is thrown with such force against a table that his spine breaks instantly, killing him on the spot. Another tries to fight back but is beaten to death with a golf club, with no chance at all. The sequence continues when another agent is slammed against a wall so violently that his head is pierced on impact. And to top off the chaos, a 4th agent has his throat ripped out. The two engage in a direct and intense fight, with the imposter having the upper hand at first, but everything changes when Annie manages to fight back and turn the tables. She goes all in without hesitation and chokes the shifter to death, killing her on the spot and putting an end to the infiltration. Grace Mallory, in a desperate attempt to convince Ryan to abandon Homelander, goes too far. She tells the boy that his father raped his mother. Ryan, confused and feeling trapped in the CIA facility, panics, pushes Mallory, and accidentally breaks her neck after throwing her against the wall, killing her. He runs away without knowing what to do. And then comes the most impactful moment of the season. Butcher, Homelander, acting under the alter ego of the tumor, the Joe Kessler inside his head, finds Newman trying to ally with the boys. Without hesitation, without negotiation, he rips her in half midair. The woman who spent entire seasons being built as a complex villain with real motivations and genuine love for her daughter ends up in pieces at the hands of a butcher who no longer recognizes any limits. And then comes the final twist. Homelander's coup failed with Newman dead and the president alive, but Sage shows up with a congratulatory balloon because that was her plan all along. She never wanted Newman as a puppet president. She wanted exactly this chaos which pushed Congress to their side and opened the way for a fully controllable human president. Homelander finally achieved his dream of making America super again, but in Sage's way, not his. The boys need to run, but it's already too late. The entire government is now on Homelander's side. Frenchie and Kimiko, who had finally admitted they love each other, are separated when a mind-controlling Soupy forces Frenchie to go with her while Kimiko watches helplessly. And she, who spent entire seasons without speaking, opens her mouth for the first time just to scream in despair. The season ends with the world in Homelander's hands, and Billy Butcher as humanity's last line of defense. A dying man, consumed by a tumor parasite, willing to unleash a virus that could kill every soup on the planet. No exceptions, no remorse, and no turning back. And, well, that's the end of Season 4 of The Boys. We'll only find out what happens next in the next season. For now, click on the screen and check out the most painful deaths in superhero movies. Click and watch. See you there.